Hello there, Pursuing Freedom friends, and thank you for being here today. I am glad you've joined us. I'm super excited to introduce you today to Stacey Alcorn. She is the CEO and founder of LAER Realty in the Boston region, and she's got over 500 agents on her team with over 34 offices, I believe. She's been in the industry for quite some time with experience both on the mortgage side and the real estate side. So as you can imagine, Stacey is going to bring a wealth of knowledge and expertise and perspective to the show today. So I am grateful she's taking the time to be with us. So with no further ado, Stacey, I just want to say, first of all, thank you for taking the time to join us today and share your story.
No, thank you. I'm super excited to be here.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. So tell the listeners a little bit about your journey in real estate, kind of the how, when, and why you got into this crazy business and how it's unfolded over your tenure in the business so far.
Sure. I started in the early 90s, and I kind of ended up in real estate by accident. At the time, like when I always start the story, like when I barely scraped by graduating high school and ended up going to community college for a couple of years. And I needed a way to pay for that. And my next door neighbor got me a job in the mortgage industry. So I tell people I was a copy machine girl for several years. I literally sniffed toner and copied massive packages for many years. But that helped me pay my way through my community college. I, from there, went to business school. And in the early 90s, as I was making copies of files, the 203K mortgage came out. And basically, the 203K mortgage is a rehab mortgage that came out in the 90s, and it allows borrowers to rehab a property. At the time, that program allowed investors to rehab properties as well. Now I think it's only owner occupied. But anyways, they needed somebody to process that mortgage. And since I was looking to do something better than copy files, I said, I'll become the 203K processor. So I ended up getting a job as a processor. I was still going to school at the time. And I needed to figure out a way to pay for college. And so I was watching investors come in and use that 203K mortgage. And this was after a crash as well, the 90s. So properties were very inexpensive. Investors were coming in using that program, and I was processing their mortgages. So I said, I can learn how to do that. So I ended up buying my first piece of real estate when I was like 19 years old. It was a little 2-family property in Lowell, Massachusetts. And I bought it for like $35,000 and using the 203K rehab mortgage. And from there, I started flipping real estate. And I was still processing mortgages all the way until I graduated from college, which was 1995. And between 19 and 24 years old, I flipped, 24 or 25 houses.
Wow.
Sometime in that time frame, right around 95, 96, I attended a Tony Robbins seminar. Tony Robbins came out to Lowell, Massachusetts, which Lowell is a very small city. I doubt we'll ever see Tony Robbins step foot in Lowell, Mass again. But I went to a 3-day seminar with Tony Robbins, and literally I went to that seminar, and the next day I quit my job as a processor and said, I'm going to become a loan officer. Never going to work for a paycheck again. I'm going to be my own boss. So I became a loan officer, still was flipping real estate. And during that time, I decided as one of the avenues to grow my real estate business, to grow my mortgage business, I'd buy real estate offices. So I ended up buying my first real estate office in 2000. It was a franchise, a real estate franchise. And literally, I really only bought it because at the time I just wanted to make connections with real estate agents. And I started slowly buying up additional real estate offices. By 2014, I had 14 offices, and at that time decided to create my own brand. So I left the franchise I had been with in 2014 to to create the company I have now, which is just an independent real estate brokerage out of mostly Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Connecticut, Rhode Island, and growing. We have a goal of building the #1 real estate brand in New England. I will say a couple things that happened in between all that is I ended up going to law school and got my law degree, and I do have a small law firm as well. I also ended up at roughly 10 years ago, I had read the book Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And that kind of took me off on this whole, like I have this side gig that I go out and interview. I write articles for like Entrepreneur Magazine and Huffington Post. And that was kind of came about because of Think and Grow Rich, because Napoleon Hill had interviewed all the coolest people in the world at the time, early 1900s. So I decided to go out and interview all the coolest people in the world. I've now done like 500 plus interviews. The only reason it matters is because I say that any of the success I have today as a real estate broker and as a lawyer is built on like a massive network. I have a massive network of human beings who've helped me, and it all came because I interviewed them.
There's a lot to unpack there, and it's incredible. First and foremost, I'm over here smiling, just thinking about what a bulldog you are, like this whole story of working in the copy room and to put yourself through college. And then how old were you when you went 100% commission and took the leap?
I was in my early 20s.
Yeah. And one of the things I was thinking about as you were sharing that story is, it's kind of a strange question, but like nature versus nurture. And, that's a very impressive journey you've had. And I love that you strike me as somebody who doesn't hold back. When you have an idea, you just kind of go for it kind of thing. And so, how much of that would you attribute to your natural DNA and the kind of the person you've always been versus the way you fed your brain, like going to the Tony Robbins thing and then realizing that gave you the guts to believe in yourself to take the leap. And then as you interview over 500 massively successful human beings, and you think about, we're the product of the 5 people we spend the most time with, there's a little bit is like nature versus nurture. And so I'm curious, for someone who's listening and is just sort of feeling blown away by what you've accomplished in such a short period of time. I mean, it might feel like a long time, but I'm looking at you and you're young and you've done so much. So, how much do you attribute to the impact that the mentors and the seminars and the, interviews have had on your life versus like how you're naturally wired to just kind of go for it?
I definitely don't feel like I'm naturally wired to do any of that. I will say that like, Tony Robbins probably was the first like milestone, somebody that could just help me open my mind. Because I'll still say even today, like I think it's a byproduct of the interviews I do too, that I constantly question why I believe stuff. And I'm very, very careful, like not to believe what I believe. What's interesting is, so my parents were the opposite of me. Like they were very, very conservative. Like my parents, when I graduated from high school, I joke about the fact, like I had to figure out a way to go to school because my parents didn't save up for college because like girls go get married and find a spouse that's going to take care of you. Like that's what they wanted for me, was to like find a spouse that would take care of me. So it's interesting that like I feel like I was lucky at a young age to go to that Tony Robbins seminar and say like, all right, who do I want to be? What does the life look like that I would have to have? And so like little teeny things, for example, we never really traveled as a family because my parents had like this intense fear of flying. And so by the time I was 18 years old, I also had a fear of flying just because my family taught me to have a fear of flying. And then I remember being at the Tony Robbins seminar and like thinking about like, what does the life look like of the person who I want to be? Like that person is not sheltered, sitting at home and never leaving like the state. That person is somebody that's well traveled. So I realized that like I'd have to get used to being uncomfortable if I wanted to aspire for something more than like even what my parents probably wanted for me.
That's awesome. And one of my favorite quotes is that the sooner you step away from your comfort zone, the sooner you realize it wasn't all that comfortable. Mm-hmm. And that's a perfect example of like, maybe you're feeling stuck with the fear of flying, but everybody gets stuck with the fear of something, right? And so the choice is whether you're going to remain stuck or whether you're going to act in spite of that fear or uncertainty, because most often, at least in my own journey, is every time I've stepped outside the comfort zone, I could look back and say for sure it wasn't more comfortable before I took the risk, before I took the leap. And so that's interesting to me. One of the questions I have for you is, as an owner and a leader and someone who went from processing loans to originating loans to obviously building a successful business that allowed you to buy brokerages, how long did you remain an originator and, a salesperson before you started thinking about developing yourself as the leader that you need to be able to create a successful business and create a successful culture? And what did it look like for you to transition from, here I am at a Tony Robbins seminar, and tomorrow I'm going to take the leap to the sales job, the 100% commission, no paycheck kind of thing? Mm-hmm. How long before you realized, okay, now I need to figure out how to lead, because they're not inherently the same skills. Mm-hmm. Selling is something you need to learn how to do, and leading is something you need to learn how to do. So what did that transition look like for you?
Yeah, it's super interesting. I still feel like that's something that I am still learning about. Like, I will say that, through all of that, even over the last 20 years, I will say, like, first of all, I have a million awesome mentors that come from those interviews, by the way, like going out and interviewing really awesome people. Like I 100% believe we are the people who we spend the most time with. So you have to be super conscious of the fact, like, who are you spending your time with? I'll also say, like, we are, as human beings, we are like the information we consume. So that's why I'm very, very careful about like not watching. I cannot watch the news or any of that, because I just can't. I can't be there like mentally. And I do spend at least 1 hour a day reading. So for the last 20 years, time blocked, 1 hour a day, I'm reading something. And I will say that I probably just kind of took in some of that stuff along the way. I will say I'm definitely a risk taker. Like, even people say, like, I buy real estate like crazy. I buy real estate brokerages. I take risks. However, if you really study, like I mentioned, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, I read a ton of books, thousands of books. But one book that just sticks with me over the long haul is Napoleon Hill, because one of the lessons that you can take from that book is that it's only a risk if you believe it's a risk. So like I go into something 100% knowing, not thinking or hoping or wish, like hopefully it all works out. I 100% know in the core of my being that everything works out exactly the way it's supposed to work out. The universe 100% has my back. And even when bad things happen, which things occasionally happen in business, something goes like the way, some stuff doesn't always go our way. I 100% know that when something goes wrong, there's a silver lining. I just wait, because I'm like, all right, the universe has my back. There's a much bigger play in this than I'm even seeing right now. So I patiently wait and watch. But that's why I don't worry so much about taking risks and like going after a dream or going from like a paycheck to a commission or going by like starting a business. I do think that a lot of people who can't, I mean, I have agents that can't give up I know that if they gave up their job, their part-time job, they'd make $200,000 selling real estate. But it's definitely like if they feel they need the job, then they're definitely never going to be the person that can make $200,000 in real estate until they can figure out that they don't need that job. Like it's all mindset. But I would say any transition I've had into being a leader is kind of like just from osmosis, from reading and being around cool people.
I love how you talk about the silver lining and patiently waiting. I've never heard it said so eloquently that if things go awry, to just simply patiently wait to see where the lesson presents itself.
Mm-hmm.
I was laughing with a gal that was on the podcast a couple weeks ago, and we were talking about how when you've been in the business for a long time, then you've surely had bumps in the road and you've had failures and you've made mistakes and you've messed up and you've had to pick it up again or broken something and put it back together or whatever. Mm-hmm. But the longer you're here, the more you realize that, like you said, that's the silver lining. That's where the learning happens. And mm-hmm. it helps to, turn down the volume on the fear of what if and the fear of messing up or failing, if you will, because there's no failure that you can't recover from if you choose to recover from it, right?
Yes.
So what does it look like for you? I always like to ask this question if someone's been in the industry for 20 or 30 years, and especially as a leader and as a mentor, I'm sure to many, what is your advice or what do you see different when it's, then versus now? So then there were no cell phones and there was no social media and there, eventually there were pagers and whatever it was, right? But things were done differently then. And things are different now from a technology perspective, but from a like business development and lead generation and growth mindset, what's similar then versus now, and what do you see is different where people need to be adapting and evolving?
Most of it's the same. Like the way you go out and build relationships, I mean, it's all the same as what it was 20 years ago. I'd say where it's slightly different is communication is just faster today. It's not, I remember like when I was in the mortgage business, I swear, what's interesting, when I told my manager I was leaving the mortgage, that I was going to become a loan officer, I stayed in the same bank, but I was leaving my processing job. I was making $26,000 a year, which at the time I thought was a lot of money. She said, "You're crazy. The market is terrible. The real estate market had just crashed and everybody wants to be a processor because it's a regular paycheck." And I'm like, no, I definitely want more for myself. And I think I can do more. Like my first year as a mortgage person, I made $85,000, which was I thought 26,000 was a lot of money. 85,000 was like astronomical at the time for me. But like the one thing I did really well that other mortgage people did not do well is if somebody called me, I answered the phone. So it sounds so simple, but I say it to real estate agents now. When I call real estate agents, it goes to voicemail. And I'm like, if you call a high performing real estate agent or a loan officer, they typically answer their phone. Unless for some reason they're really tied up, they don't let every call go to voicemail. So in that way, it's like, this is still a relationship business. You still have to develop rapport with clients. But I think the way I built my business back then was that I answered my phone all the time. And that was like my unique value proposition, was that I answered my phone. The downside to the world today, I think, is that I'm not a huge fan of social media. I use social media. I think the real value of social media is it gives us an ability to listen in on what's happening in the lives of people around us. So we can see what's going on. If somebody had a death in the family or is struggling or something great happened in their life, we can actually hear about it or see it on social media. The downside to all the social media is like same reason why I try to stay away from the news. I mean, now the social media is the news, so you really can't get away from, and then you see all the stuff that's happening in the world today. It's super polarizing. I just try to stay out of it and focus on good stuff and the things that I can control. And otherwise, it's very easy to get caught up in all of it and spend 2 hours on Facebook, like telling the world what your opinion is when you could like be cleaning out your database and talking to people who want to buy real estate.
So I've got two questions on the heels of that, or comments too. One thing is I want to elaborate on the idea of using social media to find out what's happening in the lives of people you care about, because when it comes to leveraging that from a business perspective, one thing that we've done as a team is we are always looking for opportunities. And so I think I heard this at another conference that somebody was calling it an opportunity alert. The idea is that we're looking for an opportunity, and the opportunity is to show how much we care about human beings.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. Like the people in our database are relationships, and we care about them as human beings. And we want to show up as caring human beings, since they only need our services every 3 to 5 to 7 years. Mm-hmm. So if you really want to be of value, it's not in home improvement flyers. It's in what's going on in their lives, really, because the transaction is just one piece of that long trajectory of life. And so mm-hmm. talking about, using social media for that, I think it's advisable for folks to time block that, spend 30 minutes scrolling, make a list of people that have life events going on, mm-hmm. and then spend an hour doing phone calls, handwritten notes, or little gifts to celebrate or to mourn or whatever. One of the other questions I have for you is, in terms of the relationship building, I have this joke when I'm doing my presentations, I always say, pick up the dang phone. It usually says it really big on the PowerPoint presentation, just pick up the dang phone, because if we're going to be in the business of solving problems and being a resource to people in all areas of their life, in order to be top of mind as a human being that cares, and let the business come as a byproduct, because that's what we do for a job, we need to actually know what's going on in people's lives. And social media is one way, but conversation mm-hmm. is another. So what are your thoughts on folks that like hide from the phone still, and they just try to hide behind text and social media and let that be enough?
I don't know. I see it. I just try to remind people that just like when I was first getting out of high school and trying to break the chains of like my mental thoughts that were kind of implanted into me up until the time I was 18 years old, I created a picture of who I had to be to create the life that I wanted. And at that time, like some of the stuff I had to be was like, I didn't love networking, but like if I wanted the life that I created, a picture of the life I wanted, I had to learn how to network. I didn't love public speaking. I had to figure out a way to make myself like public speaking. I had to, by the way, I love to fly now. So I had an intense fear of flying. Now I find it like relaxing, and it's an opportunity to read a book. So the same goes with people that answer the phone. Like, you probably see it in your business too. I know that if I'm calling a high producing agent, that most likely they're going to answer the phone. I also know that if I am calling a real estate agent who's struggling in their business for whatever reason, I know that there's a good chance they're not answering the phone. So I say, like, if you want to have a better business, like, just go talk to high performing agents and really study and say, like, what are you doing differently that I'm not doing? I would almost guarantee one of the things they're doing is getting back to people very quickly. They make it easy for the customer to do business. Like the customer doesn't want to chase you.
Yeah.
So they make it simple.
Well, the irony is that I say pick up the dang phone, like pick up the phone and make phone calls. And you're saying pick up the dang phone when it rings.
Answer it, yes.
So pick up the dang phone.
But making phone calls, it's the same thing. Like you got to communicate with people the way they want to be communicated with. So.
All right. So here's my question for you. The goal is to be the #1 real estate brand in the Boston area, or is it in New England, did you say?
New England.
Okay. So broader region. So what does it look like for you and the kinds of agents that you attract to your business? What does it look like to grow and to become #1, given the unforeseen impact of coronavirus and just in general? Like, where do you guys focus the most amount of your energy and attention when it comes to training your agents, motivating, and trying to make sure that you're basically creating the path for that predictable growth and realization of your own goals as an organization?
Yep. So where we spend everything that's happened, as soon as the coronavirus hit, and our state, Massachusetts, got shut down, we immediately created we called it an online success summit. And basically in 10 weeks, we did about 140 training classes and just tried to keep our people focused on stuff that they could control, not on like the media and stuff that they couldn't control. And we opened up all that training to recruits across our marketplace. And the way that we grow sounds probably sounds unusual to some people, but I do believe that we all give off a vibration, and we attract the exact type of agent that would fit in here. And the type of agent that would fit in here is somebody that kind of has an open mind. They believe in the law of attraction, manifestation. To a certain point, that's a big chunk of what we're teaching as well, like kind of an open-mindedness. But I always say, like, it sounds crazy, but like, I manifest the perfect people who belong here. I do take the steps too. I make recruiting calls every day. We do tons of training classes, and not everybody's a perfect fit for our company. I'll also say that I am unique in my marketplace in that I have awesome relationships with all of my competitors. Like I tell them, I'm like, I am 100% recruiting your agents, just as I know you are recruiting mine. I will never hold it against you that you have recruited one of my agents, because it's not your fault if you recruit one of my agents. It's my fault, or they just weren't a good fit. So I don't lose sleep over agents. Sometimes decide that there's a better brokerage fit for them somewhere else. I get that we're not for everyone, but we kind of have like this organic recruiting strategy of manifesting and putting I put in my head who is a great fit, and usually they end up knocking on our door.
I could not agree with you more. And I have to say that for those folks who are listening that are at every level in this business, whether you're brand new or you're a seasoned veteran, whether you're a CEO like Stacey or a solo agent, it doesn't really matter, because whether or not you're trying to attract clients or you're trying to attract, team members, the story you write in your head, your belief system around, and your clarity of definition of the type of person that you want to work with, that you want to be in a relationship with, whether that be in a work or personal situation, if you can clearly define the type of person you're seeking, they will appear in the most unusual ways, seemingly miraculously. But it's not miraculous, it's because you're putting attention on it. And they say that where attention goes, energy flows. And I speak to a lot of real estate agents that say that I wanted to build a team, and I'm maxed out and I'm burning out. I'm doing 70 transactions a year and I'm working 24/7. And I've tried that. I've tried bringing on agents or I've tried bringing on assistant and it didn't work. And I say to them that just because you tried and it didn't work before doesn't mean it's not going to work. But if you tell yourself that story, that there's nobody out there that's the perfect fit for your organization, then chances are you'll never find that perfect fit. But if you rewrite that script and you say that, like, I attract conscientious, kind, hardworking, and organized individuals to my organization who are looking for a home that I can provide or are looking for the culture that we've created, there is someone for sure out there looking for you. And as soon as you can define it and believe in it, just like everything else, it just comes back to everything is accessible, everything is available. As long as you define it clearly and then get out there and make relationships, you're going to attract the perfect clients. You're going to attract the perfect team members, the perfect friends, all the things, you know?
Yes. One of the affirmations I say to myself, I only have a small handful of affirmations, but one that I've been doing literally since Tony Robbins is, today I'm going to meet the right people at the right time for the betterment of my business and my life. Ooh. I tell myself that all the time. Today I'm going to meet the right people at the right time for the betterment of my business and my life. And I can't even tell you, I'm a master manifester anyways, but like if I think in my head, like, I need a plumber today, I guarantee you within 48 hours, like a plumber is going to magically appear in my life and they're going to be the perfect plumber for whatever I need done.
I love that so much. Oh man. I mean, I just had to write that down. Today, I'm going to meet the right people at the right time for the betterment of my life and business.
Yeah.
I also only have a handful, but I have now just added one more.
Awesome. It works.
Drop the mic on that one there, Stacey.
And I do tell people, like, when you're trying to manifest, where many people don't manifest or they have a hard time with manifesting is really try not to come from a place of needing. Like if you have the sense of like need, you are going to retain that sense of need. So like you're not going to find what you want if you're always coming from a place of need. Like you have to figure out a way to get yourself to abundance. And I will say, like for me, that's why for all the ups and downs I've had in my career, like even like leaving the franchise I was with, they sued me for millions of dollars. It was super stressful. Things like that. I will say, like, I have what I call a certainty anchor. There's certain things I do in my life to make sure that I'm not having those negative emotions or coming from a place of need, because I just know that those will wreak absolute havoc on your business and life. And it's all just your mindset. It's all controllable by you. But most people don't realize that they can control all of it. And if they don't control it and they feel like anger or hate or need or sadness, they're literally going to create more of that. So I focus on like abundance all the time and gratitude, and like constantly I say to myself 100, 200 times a day how thankful I am for every little thing. And when I feel like things are not going my way, rather than focus on that, I had a good test 2 years ago. My law firm ended up getting fined, and I got fined because my law firm does a lot of short sales, and I didn't realize that one of the states that I was doing short sale business in had implemented a new license for negotiating short sales. Long story short, they ended up giving me a fine of $120,000. And when they gave me the fine, like the feeling I had, like this lump in my throat, and for like 5 minutes, I started, like, I could feel the tears in my eyes. I was saying to myself, like, every time I get myself out of a hole, like another hole, like for 5 minutes. And then I caught myself. I'm like, dude, if you stay there, like it's going to get way, way worse. So then I started focusing on all the reasons why I was so thankful to get a $120,000 fine in my business. And you know what? No big deal. Because I'm like, you know what? I got this. You think I can't handle a $120,000 fine? I'm thankful that I have a life that a $120,000 fine does not put me out of business. And I immediately took it to a whole new place because the universe is going to throw you curveballs. I believe they're tests. Like every once in a while, the universe is going to throw me a test to be like, do you really believe all this stuff that you espouse to people and you say to agents and stuff like that? Do you really believe it? Because here, we're going to throw a $125,000 fine at you and see if you still believe what you believe. So I look at it that it's a test. You get through it, but you got to be careful of like the thoughts you're having because it can spiral. And I've seen it. I've seen real estate agents that their lives spiral out of control in a negative way. And it's 100% the thoughts they're having in their head. They created it.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you completely. And I also commend you for catching yourself because it's easier said than done, but there's intention behind that. And the intention comes from a place of knowing. And it sounds like you just have this knowing of, I can choose my response to this. And the response that I choose will affect what follows. And I can either have a snowball of positivity by choosing that direction and that thought and that belief, or I can have a snowball of negativity, which will derail me from everything I want to bring into my life, which is joyfulness and abundance and success and happiness and great relationships and all that kind of thing. So I love it. Well, I do not want to take any more of your time because I promised you we would wrap up at the hour. But man, Stacey, you're amazing. I'm so glad that you took the time to be on the show. I feel like you bring such a calm yet powerful influence to our industry, this podcast, and everyone you touch in your life. So I'm grateful. I know that everybody listening is as well. So thank you so much.
No, thank you. It's been awesome. And thank you for awesome questions. It was a great afternoon.
Awesome. Well, thanks for all my Pursuing Freedom friends for tuning in today. As always, I would really appreciate it wherever you're consuming this content. If you could subscribe and find the little pencil and leave a review because it helps us continue to attract amazing people like Stacey who come on to the show to share their stories and inspiration to help you on your journey to creating a life you don't need a vacation from. I love and appreciate you all. Make it a great day and we'll see you next time.